Okay, what is this about? This is a Josh Brett video. The sad story of Nauru, the fattest place on Earth. Is it actually?
America, England, Canada. None of these even come close to the world's most obese country. That
We gotta pump those numbers up, chat. America needs to be #1.
title belongs to a bizarre tiny island with a disturbing fate.
What? 94%? That's like an A+. That is actually an A+. My lord.
Despite having a speed limit of 25 miles an hour, a police chief once ordered a Lamborghini, only to realize he was too fat to fit inside.
That's wicked, man. They probably denied him a refund too. He's just stuck with a car that he can't fit into.
Labeled as the country that ate itself.
Also, wait a minute. How can a police chief afford a fucking Ferrari or a Lamborghini, whatever it was?
I wanted to investigate what really made 94.5% of the population overweight. How does a police chief on a remote, not so long ago tribal island afford a Lamborghini? And when essentially everyone is overweight, can we...
I know this because I lived in New Zealand and I went to school, and they teach you from an early age that the reason why the indigenous population is like this is because of diet and introduced diet from fatty Americans and white people. Yep.
Really just blame their lack of willpower? This is an
school.
investigation into how the world's richest island became the most obese country in the world.
An obesity crisis amongst Pacific Islanders.
The Nauruans could be one of the sickest nations in the world.
Nauru.
1778. The British whaling ship Snow Hunter, captained by John Fern, discovered an island. The captain thought the island was pleasant, so called it Pleasant Island. An ironic name for what's
nice.
to come. The 12 points of a star represent each of the tribes that ruled. They would trade food for alcohol, cigarettes, and guns. And in 1878, after a drunken shooting, a 10-year civil war broke out,
Oh no.
almost halving the population. Germans turned up on a massive gunboat, taking control of the island. They confiscated guns, banning alcohol, native dancing, and traditions. The island wasn't seen as important until 1899, when geologist Albert Ellis noticed a rock-like object propping open the door of a trading firm. He was told it was a piece of petrified wood from Nauru, but this didn't seem right, so he had to test it. And to his delight, it was actually a ball of bird shit. Now, before we label him as batshit crazy, guano could be used as a super fertilizer to grow foods. 80%
Oh, guano.
of Nauru was covered in this, and he was about to become very rich. So he struck a deal with the Germans to begin mining in 1906, shipping phosphate around the world for a huge profit. By 1968, 1/3 of Nauru had been strip mined, and Nauruans were living on a narrow ring around a massive jagged dystopian limestone pillars. Australia offered to relocate Nauruans to a nearby island, but this would be under Australian rule, so they decided to stay and became the 3rd smallest nation in the world. They brought the Phosphate Commission and faced a big dilemma: to finally get their hands on some of the wealth while obliterating the rest of the country, or to stop mining, stay in poverty, and preserve what was left of the island.
Yes, chicken nugget time.
In 1975, Nauru's phosphate royalties trust was valued at well over $1 billion, making them the world's richest country. The government built skyscrapers around the world, an airline, cruise ships, while every islander gained free schooling, medical care, dental care, bus transportation, and there was no tax. People would go into a shop, buy a few sweets, pay with a $50 note, and not take the change. They'd use money as toilet paper. As the wealth rose, so did obesity, from 2% to over 15% during a 15-year period.
There are a lot of countries that had that happen when they struck very valuable resources. They are definitely not the first.
The traditional Nauruan diet was
100%.
rich in raw fish and whole foods. Now that the land was being destroyed, Nauruans moved away from fishing and farming in favor of imports. These were seen as superior. They were more convenient and tasted better. Now, obesity. To help us make sense of what's going on, I called the author who wrote the definitive no bullshit guide to fat loss.
A calorie surplus or a positive energy balance is a fundamental law of physics. All diets, all weight loss diets work via that mechanism. Calorie surplus for weight gain, calorie deficit for weight loss.
This is why global obesity rates are rising. Humanity is
We're sitting on our fat asses in front of the computer and gaining 400 pounds, stuffing our faces with Big Macs and not moving, chat!
consuming more food, which is largely correlated with a Western diet. And the consumption of ultra-processed foods.
In general, they are foods that
tasty.
typically don't resemble foods that you find in nature. And they are often created to be hyper-palatable, i.e. extremely delicious, created to be cheap, and they are often energy-dense.
That's also what happened in the medieval times when they discovered spices and sugar and salt as well. They did not know what food, quote unquote, was enhanced, it like tasted like when it was enhanced, and people went nuts and gorged themselves. We're going through the same thing now, except it's like with chemicals and sugar and like pepper and spices and all that good stuff.
Here, we have a can of Spam. Next to their traditional raw fish, the ultra-processed side is much easier to overconsume for a multitude of reasons. This is exacerbated by Nauruan culture.
Food draws family together.
In fact, the Nauruan term for satisfaction
That's
and
not
feeling
just
healthy,
Nauru.
pueda, is the same as fullness.
So as the percentage of ultra-processed foods in our diet increase, it naturally becomes harder to stop overeating.
Great for the profits of companies, not so much the islanders. To understand just how bad things became, after spending 11 months studying obesity in Nauru, Dr. McLennan stated she was lucky to find one vegetable a week.
One vegetable a week? I feel like I have so much. I have like at least like one section of my meal where I have like a good plenty amount of vegetables. One vegetable a week? I think I would die. I don't think I could do it. I feel ill.
Processed foods aside, most of the world's most obese countries are around the same area. Could this suggest a genetic element? In 1962, Dr. Neal proposed a theory, the thrifty gene hypothesis, which suggests some people are much more effective at gaining fat. When Polynesians first settled in Nauru, conditions were brutal and food scarce. The theory is that those able to gain and store more fat when food was available survived, passing on their genes to the next generation, an incredibly useful thing. Until you switch to a highly processed, nutrient-deficient diet. This is when it becomes a problem. Now, there's a lot of modern science that disproves this theory, and the drifty gene hypothesis seems to be stronger, and it indicates that Pacific Islanders' genetic susceptibility to fat gain comes from random chance or genetic drift. Regardless, modern science can confirm that genetic factors make it more likely for certain people to default to a calorie surplus.
You can think of those like a dimmer switch. So if someone came along and they had the ability to change one of your genes so you were significantly hungrier than you are now, even if everything else stayed the same, that would encourage you to consume more food.
Genetics can also influence how much muscle we carry. Now, obesity is determined by BMI, an equation that only considers weight and height. This is why Dwayne Johnson is technically obese.
It is a
yeah, you have to take it with a grain of salt and actually understand. You should never take it with 100%. Like if you go to a chart online, go to a doctor or a dietitian who actually is qualified to tell you if you're fucking overweight or not. But yeah, the metric of like how muscle density is also really, it makes you quote unquote heavier, it's not a good indicator.
Crude predictor of adiposity. So people that have very high BMIs tend to have high levels of body fat.
In other words, it can be a flawed equation for more muscular people.
And this can be skewed based on ethnicity.
Studies suggest that Polynesians, on average, have more muscle than Europeans. In fact, despite being able to fit every single Nauruan inside this small stadium, one of the strongest men in the world originates from the island.
Wow, dude.
Yeah, we are built close to the ground. Like
400 kilo squat? He can, what? That guy's hella strong.
Tanks.
Jesus, dude,
So
he's a wall.
it's fully possible these statistics sound worse than they are.
It's not
How many pounds is that? That's 1,000 pounds? Dude. Chat, he can squat 2 with me. Holy, that guy's powerful AF.
Necessarily a case of genetics always cause obesity in isolation, but it's more that people can be genetically susceptible to consuming more food in the first place and can find it harder to lose weight in response to a reduced calorie diet.
And as Nauru
Sure.
was enjoying its wealth
That sounds
and imported
reasonable.
foods, new problems were arising.
The Ferrari, bro.
Despite being only 19 kilometers around, with the phosphate money, an appreciation for exotic cars developed.
One of the major recipients of the phosphate money bought this brand new Lamborghini. The only problem was he was so big he couldn't fit into the car.
Oh my god, the Lambo, bro. Yeah, you bought yourself some clothes and you're too fat to fit on them. This is arguably 100 million times worse because it's a fucking car.
While those higher up brought sports cars, public transport was free. The people no longer had to walk around as much. The farming and fishing industries took a big hit, as the land was destroyed by heavy machinery and cargo ships. Why would the nation worry about that when they could just import stuff? And why would people work manual jobs when they could just work for the government?
The work is done by workers from the neighboring Gilbert and Ellis Islands and from Hong Kong.
But less general
Wow.
activity and exercise wasn't the only reason why people were burning less calories. You see, it takes energy to break down foods, and this can vary depending on the food. In this study, multigrain bread and cheddar was compared with white bread and American cheese. The less processed option took almost 50% more calories just to digest. There's many potential reasons for this, but a key one is the macronutrient.
Yeah, this goes down to like actual like nutrient science and like the breakdown of like glucose and shit too. Yeah, it goes into like actual science. I don't know if I'd want to like recite that, but maybe he goes through it. Maybe he goes through it.
The lowest thermic effect comes from fat,
Yeah,
lower
higher
than carbohydrates
fat,
and protein.
This is another reason why a high-protein diet with enough fiber can be extremely helpful for weight loss. However, it has a small impact, so let's not get distracted.
Typically speaking, the
You still
amount
need to
of
move
energy
around.
you burn per day is very, very small relative to the amount of energy that you consume.
For a variety of reasons, many Nauruans were now burning less calories, and with the phosphate supplies running out, new challenges were arising.
Preparations are being made now for the future of the Nauruan people. The future lies with the children. Their prospects are bright. Their future is secure.
In 2006, Nauru's phosphate reserves were depleted. Most of the nation's wealth was lost through corrupt politicians and poor
Oh my
investments.
God, of
Even the central
course,
bank
classic.
went bankrupt, and assets were repossessed.
We helped them. But we made money doing it, and I don't apologize for that. It's called business.
Those managing the
Dude, that guy's evil. Get him into a CEO, man. He's a CEO of some company, man. That is stone cold honest evil. Yes, business. Yes, go fuck yourself.
Trust Fund completely squandered the $1.7 billion, forcing the country to sell the Nauru House and other prized investments to loan companies.
That's like our flagship in Australia. I mean, for me to walk around in Melbourne and look at that building with the blue star on top makes me proud, but now it's gone. It is hard to take.
The island returned to a life of poverty. Only now, they were unable to grow their own food. The environment was destroyed.
Yep.
People on the island could now only afford cheaper cuts of meats, such as turkey tails, mutton flaps, and spam.
This meat isn't sold in other countries. Did you know that?
So wait, I think I watched this a long time ago. I think I watched this for school. Yeah, I think we watched this at school. I'm having real weird flashbacks. That's interesting. Yeah, with this lady.
These were considered waste meats by Australia, who
Yeah.
shipped them off to poorer Polynesian islands like Nauru, who, with their culture of feasting, welcomed them. This has gone on for so long,
Yep.
that Samoa even considers turkey tails a national dish. Now, imported fresh food is available, but not many
costs an
people
arm and a
could afford a
leg, yeah.
$61 watermelon. In 2007, the World Health Organization estimated 94.5% of Nauruans to be overweight or obese.
That's unbelievable, man. America needs to be #1. What is going on over here? I can't even pronounce half of these places. Niue? Come on, man! Palau? United States? I'm disappointed in you. Genuinely. Not even top 10. Not even top 8.
As popular media sites labelled the islanders lazy, lacking in willpower, the country that ate itself.
After you fucked them over like that, stone cold killer. Like, granted, yes, the government did fuck over the people as well, the politicians. They pissed all away all the money and didn't think of anything but buying Lambos and stuff. But yeah, you did fuck over their land, you did.
But the evidence
For
shows a
exploiting
different
them.
side to the story that quite a few people would prefer us not to know about. And to say Pleasant Island's experience and the consequences would be a massive understatement.
I'm worried because of my food. I don't want to take off my food.
You have diabetes? That was her leg.
Yeah.
Today, many Pacific Islanders
my
live with obesity
Lord.
and its associated health issues. The life expectancy for men is under 60 years old.
I really want to know what causes diabetes.
Excess sugar in your blood from eating.
Food. Okay.
Many islanders have diabetes-related amputations, making it much more difficult to be physically active at all.
And you can't work either, chat.
People unaware
sad,
that
bro.
the desolate wasteland they see used to be a picturesque island. In the words of a Nauruan church minister, I wish Nauru could be like it was before. When I was a boy, it was so beautiful. There were trees, it was green everywhere, and we could eat the fresh coconuts and breadfruit. Now I see what happened here, and I want to cry.
And
I
all the
wish we'd never
abandoned
discovered that
stuff.
phosphate.
More people are trying to diet now than they were 50 years ago, but they are fighting a system that makes it harder for them.
They can't even grow their own stuff. That's what's the most fucked up thing. It's that they can't even grow their own things on that island. Period. They can't fish because of all the cargo ships that are left there and ruined the coral reef. So how the coral reef works is that when ships come in, they tear up the reef in order for the ships to get through. And if you don't have a natural coral barrier, I learned this in college too, which was, oh my god, I can't believe I'm retelling this, but the coral reef protects and insulates the little island in order for you to be able to fish as a people on that island, and everything is getting fucked up. Even the ships importing the food are also fucking them over. I know it's because they have to, but like it's just like a never-ending cycle at this point.
Everything is being optimized for convenience. And the
Yeah.
Pacific Islands are resorting to drastic measures to try and help.
Dr. Salilo Tomiki is trying to help 2 of his dental technicians lose weight. He has wired their jaws shut so they can only consume a liquid diet.
I mean, some people in America kind of need that too, I'm not gonna lie. I've seen some people that are like 600 pounds, and I'm like, man, I don't know, I feel like maybe you just need to stop scarfing food, and you need to stop shoveling food in your mouth every waking moment of your life.
This poster was created by Nauruan kids on National Diabetes Awareness Day. Many of them will have lost their mothers and fathers to obesity, some of which we may have seen earlier. People are very aware of the negative consequences and what needs to be done on an individual level. But external factors make weight loss more difficult.
Yep.
This is why personal trainers shouting "eat less and move more" hasn't cured obesity.
It can be compared to telling a drowning person that they need to drown less and swim more.
Less than 1% of people that participate in these sort of programs maintain the actual weight that they lose.
I think it's easy to blame the individual, because on a very basic level, that person has consumed too much energy relative to how much they have expended. So there is obviously an element of individual responsibility within that. The reason why I think it makes far more sense to zoom out and look at the other factors that drive that intake is because if you look at weight gain rates over the past 50 years, regardless of age, sex, country.
Even 1975, that's the age range for like older Zoomers. That's their dads. Moms and dads. 1980s. That's where like most Zoomers and millennials is a little bit further back over here. Like even then, obesity wasn't even. It's quite literally almost double. Almost double.
Are all going up. But if you look at dieting rates, they also tend to go up. So it's not a case of people are not trying anymore. So rather than pointing the finger of blame at the person, I think it makes sense to zoom out and ask why so many people are struggling with their weight.
Lot of things. That's big sad.
What happened in
chat.
Nauru is happening across the rest of the world. Calories consumed being higher than calories burnt is always going to way people gain weight. It's just that there's many more factors which can influence this. Now, if you're struggling with your weight, this should be good news, because you might not need to wire your jaw shut.
I
Now,
wanted to.
it turns out that Ben's
Fucking
talents
shut
extend
up.
beyond giving viral wedding speeches. And he's actually one of the best guys in the fitness industry.
Wow.
He told me I didn't have to promote his book, Everything Fat Loss, but this is in my top 5 fitness books of all time. You can see all my notes on it, and I think the reviews speak for themselves.
Little baby
So if your goal is
ad?
fat loss, I
Yeah.
can really recommend his book. Now, this video took a lot to make, so I greatly appreciate everyone who likes the video, comments, and shares it around. I really enjoy making this type of content, and I also have a free newsletter where I try and help you develop your fitness resilience, as that's what we're all about here. So I hope you found this enjoyable, and I'll see you in the next video.
I did. I had a throwback to to school and learning about this stuff. Yeah, wow. That's you, Alana. You're sharing it around. Yeah, go give it a like and stuff. Again, there's a multitude of factors, and I think with how the island is set up, it's only 20 kilometers around, which is actually like tiny little island. Airdrop Ozempic on the island. Yes, Ozempic will save us all, chat.
Oh, yeah.